Hi, Sylvia. How are you today?
I'm doing so well today, Antonia. How are you today?
I am great. I am very great. So, our topic today is selling is not telling, it is questioning. Hmm, what do you have to say about this thought provoking topic?
I think it's a tricky one today, if I'm being quite honest with you, because I think asking the right questions does take quite a lot of thought and practice with regards to sales. I think that it's not something that you can necessarily master overnight. It is definitely a lot of trial and error, especially depending on what you are selling, whether it's a product or a service. So I think
Mhm.
we're gonna have a great discussion today. I think we're gonna talk about a lot of things that I think are gonna bring some insights to whoever is tuning in today.
And I would like to say that we start off very badly as sales professionals. We never tend to research the prospect, understand the prospect in terms of where they work, right? Where they was working from before, the tasks that they did, and the tasks that they are presently doing. Fast tracking ourselves with this pandemic right now, we are seeing that this is the great reshuffle where many people are transitioning to other jobs because they are realizing now that they don't know if something like this will happen again. So they want to go into career fields that they know that will be recession proof or disaster proof. So we now have to be abreast in terms of understanding our prospect and understanding our prospect needs. And that is why selling is not telling, but is all about questioning. So we now as sales professionals want to question our prospects to get to understand our prospects before we can even speak about our product. Don't try to speak about your product when it is you never ask the right questions about your prospect and what is their needs, because this is not about us, this is about we serving them, which is the prospect.
Yes. Well, a key thing to keep in mind, as you mentioned, with the pandemic, people are going in and out of jobs. No longer is the good old, work somewhere for 30, 40 years. That's
So
not
true.
really a norm anymore. So we're moving on to very fast-paced living lifestyles, right? Where most of it can be remote, half of it can be a hybrid mix, or you're back in the office for some cases, right? So within that setting, you are dealing with a huge shift, and therefore you are coming across a lot of different people. And like you mentioned, your prospect, they may come from a very, very different background than what you're used to. So when you are interview or not interviewing or speaking to them, you do have to kind of like think outside the box in terms of the questions that you're asking them. And like you mentioned, you're not trying to push the product onto them. You're really trying to understand their specific case scenario, because like you and I, like most people, we are living in a very different lifestyle right now.
Hmm.
We are not living our typical lives that we would pre-COVID. So I think it is really important to figure out what exactly your client has experienced during pandemic, because asking the right questions with regards to that will actually let you know more about the person that you're dealing with, more about what you can guide the conversation to afterwards, whether or not that person even needs your product, whether, you know, that the full
Hmm.
circle, right? So no, I do think with right now with what's going on, I think people are coming in from such unique backgrounds that I think that you really have to be able to understand people as well, right? And that comes with psychology and asking the right questions to actually get a deeper understanding of the person, not just yes and no questions, and not just posing your product as the end all.
And two vital things you said: make sure and know that your prospect wants your product, because you could have a lengthy presentation and at the end it do not fit the prospect requirements, and they know they don't want your product. So it basically you wasted time when you could have been focusing on another prospect who really need your product. So sometimes we have to don't really rush into the presentation, but really understand our prospect, and that is where the questioning comes in. So selling is not telling, it is really questioning. And to go a little further, right? We as individuals, we always like to talk, but we don't listen. In selling, listening with our ears is most important. I witness where, not myself, but I witness a sales professional or prospect having a conversation. And they're supposed to be a top sales professional in the industry. And the prospect asks a question and they replied, not answering the prospect question, but maybe their mind was somewhere else that they just answer, suddenly. And that now is to show that you don't have that full interest in me, meaning the prospect. So in other words, now the prospect may want to backpedal and be like, I don't think I would, um, I don't
I
think I
feel
may want to purchase
comfortable.
today. I don't think I may want to purchase today. I think I may want to think about it. And when it is you give that prospect the time to think about it, they're just saying that, but they don't necessarily will want to purchase your product, but they just leave you hanging by saying that they want to think about it. So we have to be mindful that when it is we go before a prospect, if it's for 5 or 10 minutes, just have that acute sense and show the prospect that you really care about them and about their business. And when it is you do that, you will see a difference in terms of even the feedback. When it asks the right questions to the prospect, the feedback that you will get will be easier for you now to give recommendations as to what product may serve you well and those sorts of things.
Oh no, of course. I think a really, really key point to think here is that we think we can multitask, but
And
unfortunately, we cannot.
no.
No, multitasking is just, it is the enemy because trust me, your mind, if you truly think that you can focus on two things at once, if you can focus on what the person in front of you is saying, and let's just say what you had for dinner at the same time, you can't. So
Mm-hmm.
the second that you start thinking about something else, the second your brain starts to think, oh this, oh that, you're not listening to what the prospect can or is saying. And trust me, everybody can sense that. Anybody can sense that when you're not being listened to. It's very transparent. Like you mentioned before, your answers are quick and snappy because you're just replying to reply. You're not giving more information, you're not showing any empathy, right? You're just responding to respond. And then it just creates this atmosphere where I don't feel like I'm talking to somebody that actually cares about my needs. I'm talking to, once again, a salesperson, somebody
Mm-hmm.
that wants to sell me something. That's their agenda. And they have, that's the thing. That's when it creates a setting like an agenda. Okay, well, this person needs to do this. Okay, I'm just a 10-minute window to them that they need to just sell, sell, sell. So you're right. And when it comes to, the act of listening, you do have to be fully present and immersed in what your prospect is saying. Turn your phone off if you're in a virtual meeting, or when you are, in person. Just focus solely, however much time you have with that person, on what they're saying, because
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be able to ask follow-up questions afterwards. We have questions in sales. We have questions in the beginning. We right at the beginning of the pitch, all throughout, to the close, to the follow up. There are so many branches of questions. And if you start right away by being active and present within that conversation, within that pitch, within, listening to what your client really, really needs, it will make the rest of the sale a lot easier for you as well, because you have different references that you can use of what your prospect or client is telling you. You can actually, when you actively listen, you can reference that into the conversation later. So it's so crucial. You got to be fully listening.
Yes.
You can't be distracted, and everyone gets distracted. It's okay for a moment, but you just really fully have to set your attention on the prospect. They're the most important thing at that moment when you are speaking to them.
Correct. And in sales, the most important place to be is in front of the prospect. You could be on social media, you could multitask, talking to somebody else, typing out content for your social media page. But when you're in front of that prospect, you want to give that prospect their individual attention. And if it is you feel that you could multitask, why don't you try to drive down the road with your phone in your hand, texting and driving? And most people can't do that. So if you can't do that, right, how could you be in front of a prospect trying to multitask, and the end result is to close that sale? So when you really think about it, we just spinning top in mud. And the most important part, as I did mention, is to be in front of your prospects, because basically the more prospects that you meet, you're filling up your pipeline, and that probability will be able for you now to close more sales. So it's basically giving that prospect the undivided attention and listening with your 2 ears and responding to exactly what the prospect asks. Don't try to respond for responding's sake. That is a
Yes,
no-no.
yes. Oh, that's the worst when you have a question ready in your brain. We've done
Mm-hmm.
this. Everybody's done this. Or sorry, an answer in your brain. You're going to ask a question, you hear what the person says, and you would know exactly what you want to say next. You don't even
Yes.
really, it's like you have a narrative in that
Mm-hmm.
dialogue. Like you're not actually presently and actively listening. You're just there to voice whatever you want to voice,
Yes.
right? So that can be seen very commonly within a sales script. You know, if you are following a sales script, okay, well, you know, you have to say that, you know, you have to say that. So if you're sticking to it to the point that there is no, you know, wiggle space, it's very transparent, especially during sales calls, let's just say virtual ones, because then you're just constantly saying, okay, well, this. Okay, well, this person said they answered my question. Now I'm going to ask them another question. Now I'm going to, you know what I mean? Instead of letting
Mm-hmm.
the conversation flow, instead of listening to what your prospect is telling you, new information, you can always revert back, obviously. You can always revert back with a question afterwards. But if you are escalating, then it kind of defeats, you know, this whole rapport building that you're trying to
Yeah.
do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't create that genuine connection. It just creates a very unauthentic one that you just appear as the traditional salesman, you know?
So true. So true. And some people think that extroverts are great salespeople. No. The more you talk, the prospect don't want to hear about what you have to say. They want to hear what you have to say, yes, but they want you to also listen. And an introvert might be too shy because they now may not talk much. So the best thing to be is an ambivert in between.
Yes.
And in that way now, you will be more appreciated. So we have to always practice the fundamentals to be great at anything. Michael Jordan, um, this next basketball player, King James,
Of
LeBron James,
course.
right? They, when it is you watch their biography or watch their interviews, they always practice the fundamentals and get that to the best of their ability. And when they do that now, then they could go on and do whatever other tricks that they will want to do. So before their games, they always try to practice the fundamentals, which will be doing a 3 point shoot, doing a dunk, because at the end of the day, it's the fundamentals that will win the game, not the skills. So, as salespeople, we have to practice now, you know, reading over our script, having a script. Planning is most important. So, you have a script, you know that you have to go and meet a prospect within an hour. Yes, you maybe rehearse in the morning, but nothing is wrong if it is you rehearse a half an hour before your script. So when you go before the prospect now, everything could flow fluently, and always try to avoid sound like a robot, because they could know that if it is that you wrote a script, you want to be not robotic, but you want to flow, and everything will be all right. So the fundamentals, practicing that will become a great salesperson. Anybody, just practice the fundamentals.
Oh yeah, that like you mentioned, I love your examples there. LeBron James
Thank
obviously
you.
is taking over, you know, the court nowadays.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so I love basketball, so it's I love how you brought that up. But regarding what we do, I think when you start off and you're in this situation that you don't know what's the outcome, right? Especially when you're very new to this. So you have this script initially, you're using the script, and you want to be able to initially, read every single sentence because you don't want to miss
Mm-hmm.
something. But then that just creates such a robotic person that just you might as well just be selling with a computer at that point. Those virtual chats that they like,
Yes,
how can
yeah.
I help you? One for this, two for that. That at that point, it's that, right? So the whole beauty of sales, and the reason why sales is never gonna die out also, is because you're dealing with actual people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how as salesmen or salespeople we build up fundamentals? Well, we practice. We practice our sales script. We practice, how to overcome various objectives, especially with regards to whatever sale department you may be working in or wherever you're working in. You have to also have the right questions, right? So the right questions, for example, for you and your product or service and my product or service are going to be completely different. There may be some overlap as to how to ask better questions, but there are still variances, right? So that's why you have to have your fundamentals, and then you can build on those fundamentals. It's an ever going process. So if you don't like learning, unfortunately, this is not a path for you, because you do have to continuously learn. There are, like, how we were doing things 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago is very different than how we're doing things now.
So
Like
true.
Zoom calls, Skype calls back in the day, right? Teams, whatever you choose. That's a complete different aspect that's been, around for just a little bit of time. But it's a fundamental aspect when it comes to sales, because at this point, most of the people you are meeting are virtually. So
Mm-hmm.
you do have to build up on that, and it will come with time. It can be very frustrating in the beginning when you're trying to figure it all out, but that's okay. You just gotta keep on going, persevere, and you'll get there.
Correct. So true. And do you believe that sales professionals are entrepreneurs?
In a way, yes. I feel like everybody has a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit if you are within sales. I think there are a lot of characteristics that overlap with both an entrepreneur and a salesperson. So I think that in order, if you really want, your business to succeed as an entrepreneur, you have to think like a salesperson
Correct.
so
Yes.
critically. And same with them. I would also throw in a little bit of marketing in there as well, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to, like, as an entrepreneur, you have to have so many skills, right? You do have to understand how to sell and how to stand out in a very competitive market, because almost any single market at this point is competitive. And
So
same
true.
with the marketing. I think like anybody that has those two skills, or that is trying to at least learn those two skills, can honestly succeed in a lot of businesses with a new entrepreneurial start. So for sure, yeah.
And which one you will say more important, personal branding or sales?
Oof, you put me in a tough spot there. Okay. I think for my personal aspect, I think even if you haven't have a very strong personal brand developed, but you can talk your talk within sales, I think sales can almost overlap the personal branding, because you
So
can
true.
eventually learn how to create your brand. You can,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many resources, right? You can speak to other people, but I feel like with sales, if you can sell anything, let's be honest. If you can
Yeah.
sell a house, you can sell appliances, you can sell, software. I think it's safe to say it's a very transferable skill. Whereas with your
Correct.
personal brand, it's just you as a person, right? So that's a more marketing, I would say. So I definitely would say sales over personal brand, but to each
And
their own.
I will agree with you 100% because at the end of the day, if it is that you have a company and no revenue is generating, your personal brand can't do nothing for you. So your personal brand is basically you, right? Yes, people buy from people, but at the end of the day, a salesperson have that psychological background where they know how to ask the right questions. Falling back to selling is not telling, it is questioning. And it's more about psychology understanding your buyer behavior, because due to technology and how technology has fast tracked so much, a lot of buyers are more privy to information. So buyers now are more skeptical. So as a salesperson, you have to understand these traits of your customers and be able now to overcome that hurdle and basically sell. So selling, sales is much more important than personal branding. And each person, no matter what it is that they do, whether it be their accountant, their HR person, they are a cleaner, they are a owner, they have to know how to sell, because you are selling as a HR person to the candidate why they should choose to come to your organization to work. You are selling to a janitor as to why they should be cleaning that department effectively and efficiently. So at the end of the day, in a nutshell, sales is it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. My favorite point ever. If somebody doesn't believe in sales, just think about an interview. Just think about any interview. I don't care what job
Correct.
you're going into. You are selling yourself. You are
Definitely.
selling yourself and the idea of you and what you have to offer. And if somebody doesn't buy that, then you just didn't sell well. So it's
So
just that
true.
simple.
So, Sylvia, this conversation was really nice, right? I enjoyed it a lot. Selling is not telling, it is questioning. Everyone who is watching right now, thank you for viewing. For those who watching on the replay, thank you. And you will see us again, because we always try to come with topics that is trending, that is relatable to you, and we try to give that comparison so that in simplest terms that you could understand it effectively and efficiently and use it in your daily lives, because sales is everything.
Of course, yes, yes. We're always going to come up with something new and fun to talk about. And today was so good. It was such a relevant topic into why you should really, really, really think about what questions to ask regarding whatever business you're running.
Definitely. So you have a great one, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Take
All
care.
right. Okay, you take care also.